Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, a strike causing a major holdup at LPIA. More on the controversy surrounding payouts for creditors at Baha Mar. How's the Ministry of Education preventing Zika in schools? Plus, more music from a young Bahamian artist. Welcome to Our News. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight, a major holdup at Lyndon Pinling International Airport this morning as air traffic controllers refuse to come to work and flights are grounded, leaving hundreds of unhappy travelers. Flight after flight, planes began touching down at LPIA around 12:30 this afternoon after being delayed for hours. This all the result of a holdup with air traffic control. Transport and Aviation Minister Gladys Martin confirming in a statement that air traffic controllers refused to show up to work for over 2 hours. The reason, she said, a new security protocol requiring security screening of personnel accessing the secured airside of LPIA, of which the air traffic controllers were recently included. Hannah Martin said in hearing of the strike this morning, she reached out to the Bahamas Air Traffic Controllers Union president, but to no avail. However, she said eventually an agreement was made for a meeting on Monday. But the union, according to the minister, says industrial action will resume if the outcome is not satisfactory to them. Well, those few hours of holdup, of course, came with much headache for many as more and more flights got delayed. For Delta Airlines, 4 full flights were said to be delayed, with 90% of the passengers missing their connecting flights. American Airlines delayed 2 flights and canceled 1. Same with JetBlue, Inter-Caribbean Air, and Bahamas Air. Local flights were affected as well. Sky Bahamas had to delay 6 of its flights. Lee Air, Western Air, Southern Air, and Flamingo Air also suffering delays. But the effect wasn't just felt by passengers. Tour operators felt the pinch as well.
It's a very unfortunate situation. In the short term, it affected business. That's going to be a lot of backup with persons who have departure. And now all of the arrivals appear to be coming in all at one time, so that's going to cause a problem. So that's the short-term problem in these situations. People would have already been booked, so more than likely, the most part, a lot of them would still come. But these things tend to have a negative effect over the long-term period.
You may recall a similar holdup last year, but involving the Department of Immigration. Ferguson said whatever happened this morning could have been handled differently.
I always believe that these things can be done in some other way, because in the long run, when you look at the individual persons of the government, they're not the persons that's going to be affected when I'm talking financially, okay? The persons that are going to be affected is the average day every person. When we have our tourists refuse to come to our country, these are the persons, the everyday man's going to be affected. So this hurts the wrong set of people. It hurts the tourists and it helps the everyday man that are out here working.
Well, the Baha Mar Claims Committee's announcement that it will begin the payout of claims as early as this month is a tremendous feat, according to Chamber of Commerce Chairman Gowon, Bowe, who was once lined up by the government to become the multi-billion-dollar resort's provisional liquidator. Bowe dubbed the situation a win-win scenario. Dana Smith reports.
The committee responsible for overseeing the payout of claims to Baha Mar's employees and creditors said in a notice posted in the newspaper it will begin the process of paying them in substantial part or in full as early as this month. Although a few questions remain regarding the payouts, Bowe said he welcomes the news.
Anytime we can have creditors paid off in a situation where the estate is insolvent and the only asset really is for the benefit of the secured creditor, then we certainly have to be thankful for that. I think that is a remarkable feat to have been achieved.
Bowe said even if not every creditor is made whole, any payout is better than nothing. The reality, he said, is because the estate is insolvent, no creditor except the secured creditor was going to be paid if it played out as it normally would. And so it's certainly good news for the country.
Will everyone be made whole? Maybe not, but it's a case of saying, do I live with 70 cents on the dollar as opposed to 0 cents on the dollar? You know, even 50 cents on the dollar is better than nothing.
But the news, although good, is likely an economically sensible decision by the Exim Bank, according to Bowe. He said who best knows how to complete the Baha Mar resort than the very same subcontractors and local creditors who were associated with it in the first place.
Business people, and China Exim is a business person in this particular case, are not magnanimous. They do things for economic benefit. And so therefore, let's be practical about it. If they have not been able to secure a buyer who's prepared to take it on in a semi-completed state, they need to get it completed. Who are the people who know best how to complete it? It's going to be those same individuals that were a part of the project from the very beginning. If you're a contractor and you're owed hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, are you going to return to work with an outstanding obligation?
Bowe said the situation is a win-win because it comes across as a magnanimous gesture and achieves an economic objective. Reporting for our news, I'm Dana Smith.
Thanks, Dana. Well, former Deputy Prime Minister Frank Watson is the latest to criticize the Christie administration over the secrecy surrounding the deal it signed with the Exim Bank for the completion of the multi-billion-dollar Baha Mar resort. When we asked him about his thoughts on the deal earlier this week, Watson said Christie needs to come clean and tell the public what's in it.
If Mr. Christie was unable to lay the facts before the people, he didn't have to make the announcement about the deal being done. But it's unheard of for a public deal to be sealed in the court away from the public in whose interest this deal is supposed to be made. I've never heard of that anywhere in any country at any time.
Watson said the deal must be laid out on the table so everyone can see and make a judgment as to whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. And speculating on the timing of the Baha Mar deal announcement, Watson echoed thoughts that Christie made the decision to speak about it in a bid to draw attention away from that Moody's downgrade.
I believe that this announcement was made to overshadow the Moody announcement of the downgrading. That's really what I think, the haste in announcing the deal. He wanted to put some good news out there because bad news was coming. That's the only reason I could find. I mean, I believe maybe he has a deal, but we need to see the deal. I'm not saying it's a good or bad deal. Let's see it, let's analyze it, and determine whether it is in the best interest of the Bahamian people.
Well, one Bahamian artist is on a quest to make a name internationally. Rashad Lamont is making waves locally with his style of R&B, but is trying to take it a bit further. His new song, Aphrodite, is streaming now on SoundCloud and goes live on iTunes on September 25th. Rashad describes his style of music as R&B, but with a little more.
I have lots of different musical influences that come together, but my core is R&B. So I consider myself like an alternative R&B singer, because I put a little bit of hip-hop, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of rock, a little bit of pop, and then bring it back home to the R&B.
He put on a show-stopping performance last week at the Underground Bistro and said there are a lot more shows to come. He's been hitting the stage and making music for a few years, but his new work, he said, best reflects him as an artist.
This is the most honest music I've ever made. I'm writing about my personal experiences now. It's not necessarily like a thought in my head. Some of it is a little creative license, but mostly it's just pure journal.
According to Rashad, the Bahamas is on the brink of producing more major artists to make it big worldwide.
I think there's lots of avenues. I think that you have to be smart. You've got to do lots of research. And you have to also be fair with yourself. I think we look at lots of other people from different countries and we try to gauge what we can do based on them. And that's not necessarily fair. They're in places that certain opportunities are a little easier, certain accesses are a little more easier. I think we have to judge ourselves just on where we're at and taking ourselves from one spot to the next spot. But it's definitely easier than it used to be. You've got SoundCloud and YouTube that you can put yourself out on. You've got great distributors that will help an independent artist. So just me from the Bahamas, like on the 25th, I'll be iTunes, Tidal, Amazon, like they help do those kinds of things. And all of the services are available to you. You just got to do the research. If you want it, you got to go for it.
When our news returns, how is the Ministry of Education avoiding the spread of Zika in schools? Stay tuned.